Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about giving without expectations. So if you like this video, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel because it always helps the channel. So let's talk about this because a lot of people, what happens is they have a generous spirit. Right? We all do. You do, I do, and we all do. And we want to be able to help people. We want to be able to give to people. But oftentimes we feel like we need to give only in the spirit of reciprocity, which means that we give with some level of expectation to receive something in return, either gratitude or acknowledgement or credit in some way. And so the reason we do that is because we're unwilling to congratulate ourselves and show gratitude to ourselves and credit ourselves to the same degree that we're expecting another person to do it for us. So this doesn't mean that you should be around people who take advantage of you and just continue giving to them, even though they don't reciprocate. But it's really understanding the distinction between being in a toxic situation and being just in your normal day-to-day life when you're interacting with people, you're interacting with somebody at the store, you're interacting with a family member, a friend, and you feel like they're not giving you. In specific instances, oftentimes there's a give and take. People are in a certain mood, that's okay. But they're not giving you what you're hoping for. Maybe you feel like you're giving too much. So keep a couple of things in mind, and I think this is really going to help with framing your generosity properly, because the last thing that you want to do is become bitter and resentful because you're not receiving appreciation, you're not receiving acknowledgement or credit or love from somebody else because of your giving, and therefore you're bitter, you give less, and then you feel resentful because the other person is not giving you the recognition that you're seeking. And of course, we are social beings, so we do seek validation, so that makes perfect sense. But the first person we have to validate before anybody else is ourselves. And I always talk about internal character development, internal creation of principles and following a process so that we live by that process on a day-to-day basis. And that way it allows us to center ourselves, number one, and number two, orient ourselves to continue moving on the process. And if we ever fall off the path, which inevitably we will, or fail or falter or make mistakes, we're able to coach ourselves so we can get ourselves back on and then continue along that path. So first thing is understand that if you feel like you're not getting something from the world, you need to be able to give that to yourself first, which means that number one, give it to yourself. And number two, you'll notice that once you quote unquote have it, it's not an inexhaustible supply without you doing actively doing things to replenish that supply, which means what? I've talked about this before. If you're going through, if you have a process every day where you're eating healthy, where you're going to the gym, where you're reading, where you're doing work, think about all the benefits that all of those things produce. If you stop doing those things, you're not going to get the benefits of doing the things. So it's not like once you get to a certain level, you just stop doing everything, because what got you to that level are the things that you've done and the things that you will continue to do. So remember, process is everything, which means you're never going to get to a point in your life where you're just in a state of enlightenment and you just stay there no matter what you do. You have to continually do things and live in a certain way to maintain or build on a specific state, or be able to work with yourself when you're in any state of being. And so that's what you're doing in this particular case. You're working with yourself when you're in that state of, I'm doing too much. Now you're feeling bitter, resentful. You're feeling a little bit annoyed, down. You're not sure exactly why. You feel drained. Maybe some person is not giving back to you. At that particular point, the most important thing to realize is you need to separate yourself, give yourself space, give yourself a little bit of distance, so that way you can spend some time really processing rationally everything that you've done, so that way you can acknowledge yourself and you can also recognize that what you've been doing is really part of your purpose. Because anytime you're being generous with your time, with your energy, in any kind of form, right, which is good. So physically helping somebody out, positive words, financially, right, is that needs to be, that behavior needs to be acknowledged, right? And so when it's not, it can feel draining, which means that between the action, so you're here and you're doing the thing that produces this result for some person, right, or some system or some the benefit of somebody else, including you, because you're replenished by your own giving. But the only way to really recognize that is to take a step back and actively give yourself that recognition. But the only way you can do that is if you give yourself space to be able to do that. So in those moments, it's really important to give yourself space and to be able to construct rationally in your mind, um, not arguments, but statements and proclamations of the goodness that you're giving to the world, right? And however that resonates with you. Because a lot of people will talk about affirmations like, I am a good person and I give a lot and I do this and I do that. Some statements, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, the words that I give you may not resonate with you, which means that you have to be able to use your own words. So you have to use words that you would use, and you have to say those words to yourself, but you have to say them in the context of the the generosity that you're displaying. Because remember, anytime you're showing that, uh, you're demonstrating the giving nature of your existence, is that's a reflection of the universe or of God, because God or the universe is all giving, it's all creative. That's what it is. Of course there are destructive forces, but everything is kind of, it comes into being through the original source, whatever that happens to be, or through, the universal energy, however you want to see it. So that in and of itself is a creative force. So as you recognize that within you, you're also simultaneously recognizing that within the universe, the connection between the two things, but you're also coming up with reasons why what you're doing is really important for you and is important for God or for the universe and for other people. So you're taking all of that and you're really acknowledging yourself on a very deep level, and also acknowledging the source of everything, because you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing unless you were created by something, right? Which means your parents, and then your parents. And if you go all the way back, people talk about the Big Bang, whatever that is. We're not exactly sure, but the point is that everything was created from somewhere, right? And so this is not a religious conversation. This is really more of a conversation that you're having with yourself. Because think about it like this: if this person, somebody, right, told you, or some external party, right, you're like, you're complaining to somebody and they tell you, hey, you did this and you did that and this and that and the other thing, you might start nodding along and saying, yes, you're right, that's exactly right. And they start complimenting you, and and giving you credit, acknowledging you, etc. And so that's going to be very important, because if you don't have um, if you don't have that voice or that conversation, either with somebody else or with yourself, you're not going to be able to bridge the gap from this particular state that you are, say, let's say, for example, down here, to whatever higher state you want to achieve. So keep that in mind. I hope that was helpful. And this really comes down to the process that you're generating with yourself, the dialogue that you're creating, the internal relationship, so that you can not feel depleted by your generosity. So I hope that was helpful. If you like the video, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, join the school group. It's live right now, so it's free to join. We have 2 group calls every single week, Tuesdays and Fridays, excuse me, at 12 p.m. Eastern. And so we do group calls like this. So if you like the way I explain things, make sure you join and we can have a conversation, and I can coach you through a couple of things if you need help with something, whether it's, relationships, emotional, business, whatever the case is. So hope to see you there. And until next time, I will see you soon.